Okay, what's going on, everybody? My name is Mangg. Welcome back to Hanging with Mangg. And, yeah, so this is going to be the Gen Con special, I suppose. You know, in the old days of Hanging with Mangg, I would often share tales from my life, mostly at Applebee's, but either way. But that hasn't happened in a while because I have no life. But Gen Con comes to save the day, for I have tales. I have tales. Let's save that for the end, though, so you have to suffer through all my other nonsense. So, this week on this channel, we finished up The Last Door, we got more Octopath Traveler, and we started up Final Fantasy IX. Pretty simple stuff. This coming week, we will have more Octopath Traveler, and we will have more Final Fantasy IX. Pretty simple. This Thursday, Monster Hunter World comes out for the PC, which is very exciting. We can finally dig our heels in and really start to hunt. So, some point, probably Thursday evening, I'll do just a stream. Just for the fun of it. Probably not from the very start, because the very start of the game is pretty boring. So I'll probably play it during the day a little bit on Thursday, and then show it off later on. And that's pretty much it. August, I think, is going to be mostly just Final Fantasy and Octopath Traveler. It might be foolish to say I can finish Octopath Traveler during August, by the end of August, by the start of September. I don't know. We'll see. But there are things coming out in September that I would like to Let's Play, so it's up in the air. That's pretty much it. That's all there is to say. We got plenty of Final Fantasy to go, so no worries there. This week on the Exploring series, we had a lot of non-videos, really. We had 2 polls. And we had, I announced the Q&A, and then we announced the winner of the polls. So this is all, you know, it's all pretty lucky that this all happened while I was on vacation in Gen Con. That's pretty good coincidence. So, you know, for the first poll, I just took the runner-ups from the last poll that didn't win. I took out the mythology options. I don't want to do another mythology right now. And I added in Warcraft, because I always do that. I think I added in one other one, but I don't remember what it was. And so the winner of the... Well, actually, the first poll was pretty interesting for a while. SCP won, of course. But The Witcher and Dark Souls were somewhat competitive. And going into the second poll, there was a point in time when The Witcher was actually in the lead. I was shocked. And I don't know if it actually made a difference, but I did mention that in the Discord, the Exploring Series Discord. I was like, oh, The Witcher is in the lead. And then, like, right after that, SCP just clobbered it, and that was the end of The Witcher. So, yeah, so the winner was The Witcher. No, SCP, I'm sorry. So, yeah, SCP is the next series that I'll be covering. And I came clean about me lying about uploading those videos, or not uploading those videos. So now I'm surely going to be hunted down and killed by some fanatic that is just furious that I would lie to him. So yeah, SCP. The first video is absolutely just going to be an introduction, because there are a lot of people on my channel and throughout the world that have no idea what the SCP Foundation is, what the website is, what this universe is. They've never heard of it. This is not a movie. This is not a video game. This is this is like a fan fiction website. And to some people that bothers them. But I mean, it's still writing. Like, it's still fiction. And it's not really fan fiction because they're not, they're just authors, really, contributing to a shared sort of universe. It's really like every author other than Lovecraft adding to the Cthulhu mythos. So it's not like some dude writing Harry Potter fan fiction on some website. But already, you know, when I announced it as the winner, there's a bunch of people like, what is SCP? Why you don't know what this is? And it's just like, okay, I'll explain it. So that's got to be the first video. It's going to be a little different because normally I try to stick, like, the majority of my videos are always sort of explaining the in-universe lore of a subject. This one will be sort of half in-universe, half out-of-universe, talking about the website and things like that. Like, you know, for a lot of Cthulhu Mythos videos, I had people like, oh, does he really believe in this? Because I tried to almost make it come off with a serious tone, like, oh, maybe I do believe in this. But for that first video for the SCP, it'll be very clear that this is a website written by people. This is not real shit. God damn it. So, that should be not the easiest video, but the most straightforward, perhaps. The one that I'm the most confident in. After that, it's going to get a little trickier. Talking about the different groups of interest, Church of the Broken God, the sarcasm thing, and then people are like, oh, do a video on, like, MTFs, and it's like, why are you fucking, like, what the, do you know how many MTFs there are? Because anybody can just be, oh, here's a new MTF, here's a new mobile task force that I created just for this one SCP, and all they are associated with is this one SCP. And it's like, do I have to talk about this? Do I have to find every one? That's the thing where there's no canon. It's hard to state facts about anything. So, yeah. And then some people are suggesting I do, like, my top 10 favorite Keter SCPs or something like that. And it's like, I will never do that. You will never see a top 10 list on the Exploring series. As long as I'm in the right mind, that will never happen. Because top 10 is an opinion. That is an opinion video, and that is exactly what I try to not do. Oh my god. Oh god. And I know that those are like, top 10 videos are very popular. People love top 10 shit. But that's just not what I want to do. Now there might be 10 videos on 10 different Keter SCPs that happen to be some of my favorite ones. Now that might happen, but that's different. And then I had a guy comment, is like, how do we know you didn't rig the poll? And it's like, asshole, it's my channel. If I wanted to do something to the point where I'd rig a poll, I would just do a series. I would just pick it. Like, why would I go through all this pretense and then pick something that I'm not even sure I can do? That was one of the funniest comments I've gotten. I think he deleted it, though, because he realized how absurd it was. Or something. I didn't even get a chance to respond. So... It's a good and a bad thing. I mean, there are pros and cons to me about to do SCP. On the one hand, I'm a fan. I've mentioned SCP for years now on this channel. You guys have heard me talk about it here and there. I did that Numenera campaign that was all SCP stuff. I like the whole universe, but it is not a cohesive universe, which is good. I mean, for the most part, that lends to its attractiveness, I suppose. Artwork is going to be probably an issue. There's no concept art or anything that I can go to. It's all fan-made, which is annoying. I might have to try and find some generic stuff just to ease the burden. Research is going to be... I have no idea. I have no idea what I'm going to do. I mean, there's almost 4,000 SCPs now. And I'm somewhat knowledgeable of the first 1,000. But that's old school at this point. It's like retro SCP. But it's, you know, it's a thing where it's like, if it's great, it's great. If it's good, then it's good. If it's shit, then we just end it and move on. You know, it's not like I have that freedom, right? This isn't like some corporate assigned task that I have to fulfill or anything like that. If it's shit, you just dump it and move on and say, well, I couldn't do it, you know. I couldn't do it. And I don't know if there are other SCP lore channels that really break down all this stuff and simplify it. I know there are, like, reading channels where they read articles and read SCPs and stuff. The Volgan or whatever is the most well-known, I think. I actually remember when he first started that. Which was a long time ago. But anyways, we'll see how it goes. I don't know. You know, I was nervous when Norse mythology started. I was nervous when Celtic mythology started. I was nervous when Elder Scrolls started. And for the most part, it all worked out. So I just got to trust myself a little bit. Ow. I think it'll be important for me to continually clarify that there is no official canon. None. Absolutely none. As far as I understand it, none. Because no one owns, like, the SCP license or anything like that. This is all just people being like, oh, I want to submit this. And people either like it or they don't. And yeah, there is, like, you know, the moderators or the admins or whatever that have some ruling over something. I don't know how it all works. But I'm gonna say things that are contradicted by other things, but that's just how it is. I mean, you could write an SCP tale that's like, oh, the D-Class secretly rule the entire facility, and they own the company and the organization, and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, that's as canon as anything else, which is to say, not. Now, people might not like that story. They might not accept it as their canon, but that doesn't make it any less valid. That's the tricky part. You gonna fall off or what? Am I gonna fall off or what? So yeah, that's where we're at. I'm gonna upload the Q&A probably tomorrow afternoon or sometime. And that should be somewhat interesting, I guess. I get to ramble for an hour. I think there's only like one question about Celtic mythology in there, so that's good. Oh, doggo. And then, yeah, I get to work. Alright, I've already wasted too much time just fighting that dog. I gotta talk. So let's see. Okay, then, well, board games, obviously, we'll talk about that. Godbound. Let me summarize Godbound real quick, because we finished the campaign. Came to an end. At the start of the session, we were in the plane of elemental chaos. We were all deaf. We were in a sinkhole, and the Tarrasque was nearby, ready to kill us all. And so Studs and Phil actually missed the session for whatever reason. And so Ziggy had debated what's the word I'm looking for? Postponing the session. But he decided that by the time we got back to playing, people would probably rather just be like, we're done, just move to the next game. And then we never get to conclude it, so. Especially since Stud said he probably wouldn't ever come back for the last Godbound session anyways, because he just didn't care for it. So we finished it. So at the start of the session, just immediately, Studs and Phil's characters just got eaten by the Tarrasque. They did do some damage. Ziggy just did some random rolls, and they did some damage, but overall, they died instantly. So I decided, okay, well, the bag got me into the situation, the bag will get me out, and, you know, even if, I mean, we could have killed the Tarrasque. Let me be clear. We could have killed it. If we had all just focused on it and smited it and smashed it and destroyed it, we could have killed it. I mean, we are Godbound. This is not D&D. But we didn't really focus on that. Holy shit. Oh, god damn it. We didn't focus on that because I was like, okay, even if we kill the Tarrasque, we're still in the plane of elemental chaos, and the bag will get us out. So, I was just on the bag the whole time. And the bag was not being as climactic and dramatic as I thought it would be. There was just a lot of neutral stuff, which in a normal game of, say, D&D with the bag, that neutral stuff is still somewhat alarming. You know, it can still do crazy stuff in just a normal game. You have a bunch of, like, you know, gazelle appear or something, like 30 gazelle appear. That could do crazy stuff if you're, like, talking to a king or something. You know, who knows what. But for the most part, the bag for us was very anticlimactic. But it did have one effect. A Gulk, like, died. Like, he turned into a puddle and fell into the sinkhole. Even though I think he's a god of sky, so I think he could have flown. I don't know how it works. Oh, God. Basically, a gigantic castle appeared in the air above us and was about to plummet down and smash us. And at the same time, we got, like, thrust up into the air, so we smashed into it. And so we managed to sort of get out of the way. No, I got out of the way. The other two just let the castle fall on them, because they could take it. And the Tarrasque got smashed massively in the head by this castle. He took a lot of damage from it. But he was just really pissed off. And, can I just outrun these wolves? So, at this point, like, Mert had used Divine Fury. I had already used Divine Fury. Mert was about to just drop dead. So he, like, tunneled out, and he just wanted to punch the Tarrasque one last time. And then he died. But he had some amulet that he had found that had, like, the souls of 1,000 people contained in it. And that allowed him to return to life. But he was a human, not a godbound. And so that was the end of that. And he returned to life back on normal land. Up above, or whatever. Now, Thomas, he was underneath the castle. And I had informed, he was, like, starting to burrow out. And I had mentioned, like, oh, you know, if you keep going down, you're going to get into the abyss. Because the Plane of Elemental Chaos is from 4th edition. And so I have the book. And I was leafing through it before the session. And I saw that, like, below the Plane of Elemental Chaos is the abyss. And I was like, oh, if you keep going down, you'll fall into the abyss. I think he thought it was like a huge void. But the abyss is really just like this huge plane of demons, which he decided worked out for him. But in the end, it didn't work out for him, because I think he got smashed by some great demon lord. He'd used the bag to get the one ring. He had the one ring, but he only had it for like a minute before the demon lord took it and became Sauron. So that was good. 'Cause bags, man. So he died, irrevocably. Permanently, you might say. And so that just left me. And I was about to die. Because I had gone into Divine Fury because I got smashed by... I think when I slammed into the castle. When I got thrown up in the air. So I was about to just fall unconscious and probably die. But finally, I got a good bag effect. It allowed me to teleport 1 mile in any random direction. And so, thanks to a lucky roll, I teleported horizontally to a mile off. Oh god. And then I went unconscious, and so Ziggy gave me a luck roll to see if I got devoured by something. And, of course, I'm a god of luck, so that's not happening. So, yeah, basically an hour later, I popped back conscious, alive and well. And so then that was pretty much the end of the campaign. I told Ziggy that my plan then was to just sort of continue to use the bag and float around in gaseous form to the different, like, Jinn cities to salt away some bag effects. Until I got a bag effect that allowed me to get the hell out of this elemental chaos. And so he said, okay, you do eventually get out, but you don't go back to the normal world we were in. I go instead to Drethic, the old D&D campaign land where Artemis became a god. So that's my new land. And you know, what happens after that is just for another story. But I was the only one that lived as a godbound, so I figured that was pretty good. Considering I got them all in that situation. Maybe Tempest would feel a little bit of guilt, but he's probably just happy to get out of there. Yeah, so that was that. You know, it was an entertaining campaign. Not an incredibly long one, of course, but there was definitely some funny moments, some crazy, just like, this would only ever happen in Godbound moments. So, obviously not my favorite system, but occasionally, you know, to pop back after some real low-power campaign and just spend a few sessions doing some crazy shit, it could be fun. So, speaking of low-power campaigns, I'm going to be running a Dungeon Crawl Classics adventure. And so I had them make characters for that. And originally I was just going to run another funnel, but I decided against that because I wanted to properly show off Dungeon Crawl Classics, which is, on the whole, more than just a funnel. So I started, they're going to be level 1, but I'm actually going to run like a funnel adventure. Because a funnel adventure is just pretty much a normal adventure for the most part. They just get a bunch of low-power characters. So here they're just going to have one character each, but they've got abilities. But it's going to be pretty much the same adventure. It's still going to be somewhat tricky. So we're not going to have a session tomorrow. God damn it, I couldn't see anything. We're not going to have a session tomorrow because we're all done from Gen Con, but we'll get to that soon enough. And then after that, I guess Ziggy's thinking about doing something with Star Wars. Mert had mentioned a Star Wars game as being one of his interests, and I had brought this up years ago, but it seemed like no one was confident enough to DM a game in the Star Wars setting, because they didn't know enough, but I guess Ziggy's now confident. And he's interested. So at first he just wanted to do like the Sprawl, but with Star Wars, and just do like a real light system. But the problem with that is you need, you know, a system is more than just conflict resolution. You need character advancement. You know, you have to bring in... You could do it with no force abilities whatsoever, but then at that point, it's not incredibly appealing to play Star Wars. You know, you could just play some other generic space game. So he would have to like come up with, you know, new playbooks and force abilities and balancing this out and things like that. There is a hack, not a hack really, a powered by the Apocalypse game called Star Wars World that was in pretty active development a couple of years ago. Jesus. But at this point, it hasn't been touched in quite a while, and it doesn't seem really finished. Possibly playable, yes, but it seems heavily focused on Jedi characters. There's like 8 different Jedi playbooks. And Ziggy apparently didn't want to go in that direction when he was originally talking about it. He said that he'd prefer to set it in, like, the KOTOR setting, but, you know, being a Jedi would be, like, unlikely for you as a character. Maybe you have some Force sensitivity, but you don't start with a lightsaber. So it seems like he doesn't want us all to be Jedis and have crazy Jedi powers, a bit low-powered, and that makes it a bit more balanced for non-Jedi characters. Which is good, I like that. And so, you know, I mentioned him today, I was talking to him about Edge of the Empire, which is the first Star Wars Fantasy Flight game. Which I had played, we had done on, Jesus Christ. We had done online for a little bit, Ren DM that quite a while ago, and I thought it was a really cool system. And I liked that you could be Force sensitive. You had some, you know, basic Force abilities, but you were not a Jedi. You were just on the fringe of the galaxy, and you happened to be Force sensitive, but you really had no proper training. And you had to make some sacrifices in other areas in order to have these Force powers, and I liked that because I thought that was pretty balanced, and I think that that tone is a lot closer to what he's looking for. Edge of the Empire, the default setting is in the original trilogy. Jedis are outcast, Darth Vader is stomping all over the place, things like that. But you can just take the mechanics and just dump it anywhere. You know, as long as you're not looking for a game where everyone is super powerful Jedi, Edge of the Empire should be able to work. God. So yeah, we're gonna be looking at that. All right, let's talk about Gen Con. So this is our 3rd year of going to Gen Con in Indianapolis, Indiana, which it's about a 4.5 hour drive for us, which isn't terrible. The morning that we left, you know, we go to pick up Phil, and we find him, like, on the sidewalk outside of his apartment with, like, a notebook. We thought he was doing his taxes or some weird shit, but apparently he had just, like, gotten into a car accident with an old woman. It was completely his fault. And he didn't have car insurance at the time, because apparently he forgot that he didn't have auto-renew. So that was fun. And the day before we left, we get a call from the hotel that we had our reservations at that they no longer had our reservations. They just, like, gave up on them. And so for the last few years we've been using CLC, corporate lodging card, through my parents' company to get us, you know, some really good rates at hotels, which, you know, that we're not, the group of us going to Gen Con is not a corporate retreat at all, but hey, doesn't matter. We had the cards, we were using them. But every year we've had trouble from the hotels because they just don't like it. Normally they never care, but I guess it's just Indianapolis Gen Con. They charge through the roof rates, and they want every penny. They will take it out of your flesh if necessary. And so we've had trouble every year. Last year was just horrible, but we did get CLC rates last year. And, but this year we get a call the day before saying that, oh, we're under new management and we no longer do CLC. Which is, of course, complete bullshit, because if we wanted to stay next week, they would gladly take our CLC card. It's just them trying to pull this bullshit the day before the Gen Con starts or whatever. But the day before we leave. So we're like, okay, well, let's look around. Oh, but wait, it's the day before a massively packed event. Like 70,000 people are going to be here. There's no way you're finding a hotel room. And sure enough, there was no way we were going to find a hotel. Unless we wanted to drive like 35, 40 minutes to the convention center every day. So, I mean, we spent a couple hours just looking around, making phone calls, trying to do anything to try and get a room. But it just wasn't happening. I mean, even ignoring CLC rates at that point, like, that's just out of the equation. We were paying full price, but we couldn't find anything that was reasonable. And so, of course, we went back to the hotel that we had the reservations at, that had called us, and apparently they didn't, like, give away the reservation, or at least nobody had taken them yet, so they were still available, but, of course, at the full rate. Which... oh, shit. How did I fuck that up? Oh, right. Isn't there a ladder? Isn't there a switch? Isn't there something... do I know how to play this game? Oh, yeah. Okay. So, you know, we were looking at the rates that day. Well, Ziggy checked. That day, like 2 days before Gen Con, if you wanted to spend the night at this hotel, it was like $84 or something like that. But the next day, you know, the day that we wanted, it bumped up to $174. Huh. Look at that. So, they said, oh, we'll give you those rooms, but you have to pay the new price. So, of course, they got us for double the money. But they gave us the same rooms and the same reservation numbers. Exact. So nothing changed. They were just like, it was like ransom for us to pay twice as much money. That was it. Remember when I had a shield? That was cool. Oh god. So we paid. We got our reservation numbers back. And all was set. So anyways, we get there. We check in. It's all good. So we got there Wednesday around 7, I would say. And we wanted to go to Scotty's Brew House in downtown Indy, which is like, whenever you look up, you know, restaurants to go to while Gen Con, everyone mentions Scotty's Brew House because apparently it's really good food, and they also give out like a promotional die if you order off their Gen Con menu, and they have like a whole Gen Con theme for nerds. And so we're like, okay, you know, this is apparently like a staple, so we gotta try it once. And our best bet is to go on Wednesday before everyone packs in. So we went there Wednesday, 7 o'clock, and we had to wait 45 minutes for a table. And so during that 45 minutes, we're like, oh, let's go to Will Call and pick up our badges, you know, so we don't have to do it later or tomorrow or whatever. So we walk all the way over to the convention center. We see the line is like out the building. Like just absurd. And we overhear some guy saying that the wait to get your badge is like an hour and 40 minutes. As it turns out, that was probably an overestimate, but still, it was going to take a long time. We were going to lose our table. So we walked all the way back to the restaurant. We get seated. It was a good meal. I won't deny that. Although I got the buffalo chicken wrap, and I don't know why I ever get anything buffalo. I try it like all the time, and I never like buffalo shit. It's just... something about it is just pungent, and I don't know. I don't like it. I don't know what I'm thinking. But even despite that, it was pretty good. And so we get to the end of the meal. Like, oh, okay, where's our promotional die? And we ask our waitress, and she says, we ran out. And I said, it's the first day. Like, I was incredulous. It's the first day. How do you run out? And she said they ran out at like noon that day, the first day. It turns out, I guess, that they have a limited number per day, and they don't open up the next days or anything. But what are you thinking? You ran out at noon! And so we were convinced it's all just bullshit. Like, they buy, like, 10 dice to give away, and it's just so they can put on their, like, marketing materials and stuff. Oh, come get your promotional die, and blah, blah, blah. And so, yeah, we're never going back there. Just swearing off that place. Because the next 2 days for dinner, we went to Kilroy's, which, if you're ever in downtown Indy, check out Kilroy's pub or whatever in Kilroy's. It's one of our most looked forward to aspects of going to Gen Con. Because they've got really good food. Like, their waffle fries are the best around. I like pretty much everything on their menu. And they have $10 Long Islands, 32 ounces, with, like, just this smorgasbord of flavors. And they're really good, and we really like it. So check out Kilroy's, if you ever happen to be there. And really, you should go to Gen Con at some point. Anyways, so after dinner then, we're like, screw it, let's go back to Will Call, see how it is. We find the line is still massively long. This is about 9 o'clock-ish, 9:30-ish, something like that. And we're like, okay, we could wait in this line for an hour and a half, or we could go back to the hotel, play a game, and then come back when the line is shorter. As it turns out, the line never really got that much shorter, but we made our choice. So we went back to the hotel, we played a game of Cosmic Encounter, which wasn't a crazy memorable game. I think it was a group victory, but it was kind of a lame one, because I didn't win. I think it was against me. I just got screwed. Because I had tried to go for a group victory, and Thomas had joined me, but Studs was like, oh no, group victories are lame. And we could have gotten the victory, but because he didn't join me, he went to the other side. We didn't get the group victory. And then, like the next turn, I lost, so that was good. Thanks. So, after that, we went back to Will Call. Line was still very long, but we got in line, and we found out that it moved actually pretty quickly. We were only in line for like half an hour, and we played a game of Skull while we were waiting. We get our badges, head back to the hotel, and pack it in. Now, it seems that every year, the first night, I never get any sleep in the hotel, for whatever reason. It was a good bed, it was a good room. There was no reason. I mean, there was a Frasier marathon on, so I guess that could be part of the problem. But, yeah, I got like 2 hours of sleep. Better than last year. Thursday morning, we all head to get some T-Bell breakfast, which is delish. We head over to the convention hall around... We start waiting around 9:20-ish, 9:30-ish. And the convention hall opens, or the exhibitors hall opens at 10. So, a bit of a wait. We're all sitting there. My only goal was to get to the Fantasy Flight booth, because they tend to have the most interesting stuff for me. You know, last year I got TI4 and stuff like that. Maybe they had some cool Arkham Horror card game thing, or I don't know. And they had also just last night announced Arkham Horror 3rd Edition, which is very exciting, although it seemed pretty clear that it wasn't going to be there. But you never know. And they also announced a new game from Richard Garfield, who's the creator of Magic the Gathering, called Keyforge. And people were being very, very skeptical of this game, since the whole purchasing thing is you're buying random decks. Like, they figured out some manufacturing process that allows them to just manufacture random decks in booster packs. And there's like 1 billion combinations of different decks, and you never know what you're going to get. Something like that. It's interesting, but yes, it's probably a massive money sink. But I was at Gen Con to find 2-player games. And so they announced the starter set for like 40 bucks. You get 4 decks. And they announced on their press release that it was going to be out in September. And I was like, oh, September. It's absolutely going to be a Gen Con then, because TI4 didn't come out until like November, and I bought that at Gen Con. Bloodborne, the card game, didn't come out for like till November, and I got that at Gen Con. So I was like, okay, no problem. And as it turns out, you know, when I was in the Fantasy Flight line, they had Keyforge, like, posters up, and the bags that they were using, it's like, you know, when you purchase something, you got a bag. It had a big Keyforge thing on the side of it, so it was like, oh, Keyforge is everywhere. Yeah. And they weren't selling it at Gen Con. Which normally wouldn't bum me out too much, except I waited in line for a little over 2 hours. Part of that was really my fault. Basically, it's very easy to get flustered when the exhibitors hall doors open Thursday morning. There is a massive, massive amount of people flooding into this gigantic room that is filled with booths. Hundreds of booths. There's things everywhere. There's people everywhere. It's just insane. And so, had I thought rationally, my wait in the Fantasy Flight line would have probably been about 20 minutes, 25 minutes. But I was not thinking rationally. I fucked up. And I ended up waiting a little over 2 hours. And it was agony. It was hell. It was hell on earth. And so, you know, I was waiting the whole time to get Keyforge, not knowing. I could have asked, but it got to a point where I was afraid to ask, because I knew the answer. And so, yeah. Eventually I was just like, fuck it. I've waited in this line for like an hour and a half. I'm finishing this line, and I'm buying something. I don't care what. And so I got finally in the Fantasy Flight booth to buy stuff. They had like nothing new. The only new stuff they were selling this year was like X-Wing shit. And I was very upset. And so I bought Mansions of Madness 2nd Edition, which I had already been eyeing like last year. But it was like, this was not a new release or anything. I could have bought this on Amazon for the last year. And, you know, at Gen Con, you're paying MSRP for everything, baby. And so I was like, I'm getting so screwed. As it turns out, I was only paying like 10 bucks extra which, you know, for a $100 game, that's not the end of the world. And so, yeah, so I got that, and I also grabbed Star Wars Destiny, like the starter set, which is a 2-player dice and card game that is apparently pretty well liked. I got really screwed on that one, though, because I think I paid like 20-some bucks for that, and it's $9.99 on Amazon. But whatever. It's Gen Con. It's literally the only 2 things I bought at Gen Con. And I needed to buy something because I was pissed. So, that was that. That was all the purchases I made. The other games that everyone else bought were... Ziggy went to the H.P. Lovecraft Historical Society because they have a nice big booth there. And they have some really cool stuff. They have, like, their audio discs, audiobooks for a bunch of stories. They've got their DVDs for, like, their black and white movies. It's really cool stuff. I'm just a cheapskate. They had, like, a Masks of Nyarlathotep prop kit for the Call of Cthulhu campaign. And the prop kit was really cool. Like, really nicely put together stuff for a Masks campaign. And I'm actually thinking about running Masks again, because they just came out with the revised edition for 7th edition. Like, they went back, they rewrote stuff, they changed characters, they added characters. And I was looking over, it looks really good. I'd like to run it sometime. But the prop kit was like 120 bucks, and it was just like, okay, we don't really need that. So he bought some audiobooks from there and some regular books. Like, they have the Dr. Seuss Call of Cthulhu thing there, which was cool. And he bought Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, like the revised edition of that, which I was telling him was just... It's just a great experience to play with another person. Like, if I had a wife, we'd be done with Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective at this point. Tell you that much. And his wife is a big fan of, like, mysteries and things like that and detective stuff, so they'll enjoy it. Like, that's not a waste. Let's see. Thomas bought a game called Tags, which is sort of like... It's basically a trivia game. Why did I go this way? You have to... It's like a speed trivia game of coming up with, like, U.S. cities that start with this certain letter, or vegetables that start with these certain letters. And you just have to be real quick and think real fast. And we played it a couple times, and we didn't have even teams, and we found that every time we played, whoever had the bigger team won. Fucker! Let's see. Studs bought a game called Sword Crafters, which involves picking up tiles and making decisions to build a sword. It's just one of those games, it's like, like, it's basically multiplayer solitaire. Those are some of my least favorite games, where there's really no interaction with other players other than just you taking something that they wanted, which is not interaction. And it's just so dull. It's like, I have more victory points than you, and okay, that's it. And I actually won the second game we played, even though I picked, like, almost like, I wasn't thinking about it. I was just grabbing stuff and putting it together, and somehow I won. I don't know. That's gotta piss people off.
Every secret must be unearthed. Such is the conceit of the self-proclaimed seeker of truth.
How's your poise, bitch?
For the agony that you'll bring upon yourself.
He also bought Root, which is sort of the spiritual successor to Vast, which was a very big hit our first year at Gen Con. And so Root was supposed to improve on everything that Vast did while keeping that asymmetrical gameplay that we really liked. So we were very excited to play Root. We played 3 games of it there. And it involves like a bunch of different animal creatures. Like each player gets a different group of animals. And they each have their own goal for the forest. So like the Marquis des Cats is this big group of cats. And they start with like the most warriors on the board, and they're just trying to rule the forest, and their mechanics are very like RTS oriented. They're setting up sawmills throughout the forest, and trying to create more buildings and, you know, more barracks to bring out more cats and stuff. Like, it was very RTS oriented, and since they were cats, that's who I started with, but they turned out to be not my favorite. There was like the lizard cult that was trying to convert everyone to lizards. There was the birds who had like different decrees for what they had to do every turn. There was the raccoon who had no warriors. He was just one raccoon, and he was like the thief that was poking around and doing all sorts of fun stuff. He won 2 out of the 3 games because, of course. And then after I played the cats for 2 games, I got to play as the river folk, which are like a bunch of otters. And this was my favorite. These were awesome because they were very non-aggressive. And they were basically merchants. So they could sell all their cards to players, and you could sell people the use of your river boats, so they could go up and down rivers, and you could sell out your warriors as mercenaries. And every turn you can set the price for your different services and stuff. And so they didn't really do many battles themselves. They weren't interested in that, but they were the merchants that wanted to line their pockets. And so you try to just build up as much funds as possible and score dividends. They were great. Oh God. So yeah, Root was fun. You know, who knows when we'll ever play it again, because we only played board games at Gen Con. But it was good. It was good. Which is not something I normally say. Phil bought a couple games. One was like Laser Riders or something that just did not really interest me. And he also bought the Mangg, which is a very, very popular game. Bit of a polarizing one. I haven't even gotten to the funny stories yet, really. But real quick, the Mangg is basically this game where you deal out some cards. There's a deck of cards numbered 1 through 100. And you shuffle it, you deal out some cards to players, and the players need to play the cards on the table in rising numerical order, starting with the lowest number in their hands and going to the highest. But the players cannot communicate in any way what numbers they have in their hands. So if I have, like, the 13, and someone else has the 15, I need to play the 13 first before they play the 15, otherwise we lose a life. But you can't really communicate that. And so that's it. Pretty much that's it. That's the rules of the game. And as you go up in level, it gets increasingly harder. You start with 1 card in hand. If you do that correctly, you shuffle it all up, and then you go to 2 cards in hand, all the way up to like 8 cards in hand. And, you know, you can't communicate anything. There's no secret signals allowed or anything like that. But you sort of develop this just internal clock of how long to wait to allow somebody else to play a card and things like that. It was fun. We had some fun times. You know, mostly just yelling at each other and things like that. But, yeah, I mean, I could see the novelty wearing off after a while. Certainly. Because it is a very simple game. And after you play it with the same group for a while, it's like, okay, we all get how this works, that's it. It's a very cheap game. It was like, you know, $11 or something like that. We had fun with it. And that's it. Okay, so since we're an hour in now, let me just stop. Let me just stop and summarize the end here. Okay, so yeah, Thursday was the first day. That was mostly just like shopping, playing some new games, and then we had an escape room. We decided to not do the True Dungeon event this year, but instead we did an escape room, which, we're familiar with. But this was a Lovecraftian escape room, and so I was hoping there would be a lot of references to the Cthulhu mythos, but there were practically none. It was more like, hey, you guys like Cthulhu stuff? But it required absolutely no knowledge. You could have done that and finished it never knowing the Cthulhu mythos existed, which was a bit of a bummer. I was hoping it would be something more like it had Cthulhu mythos elements as part of it, and there would be like things where if you didn't know anything about it, there were other clues around the escape room to help you solve it. But if you were really familiar with it, you could just know the answer and skip all that. That I thought would have been pretty cool, but that was not what it was. And so there was 4 of us, because Thomas didn't get his ticket, and there were 4 strangers. And we successfully completed it. Although it was a very small room. They always overbook these things. And so I didn't contribute anything. Because I'm not the type of person that's just like, okay, clock starts now. And I'm like, oh my God, I got to do something. I'm like, I sort of just ponderously look around the room. But everyone else is like, oh, grabbing everything and looking at everything and starting to just puzzle everything out. And so once, somebody is on that puzzle, they just follow that puzzle track, They go from that to the next thing, to the next thing, to the next thing. And so if you're not in there at the start, it's tough for you to just, like, oh, hey, what are you doing over here? Let me get out of the way. I'll solve this. It's part of the whole cramped, overpopulated thing. So most of the time, I just stood around and I cracked jokes. And there was a cute girl in the group, and she giggled at a lot of my jokes. So best escape room ever, I think. 10 out of 10. And she seemed impressed when I mentioned the Norse runes and stuff that were part of the puzzle, like the Elder Futhark or whatever. So that was good. Yeah, so it was fine. We'll probably do another one next year. We went to Kilroy's for dinner, played some more games. I went to bed somewhat early, and I slept pretty damn well. I was very tired. Friday, pretty much same routine. We had Dice Tower Live, which Dice Tower Live, the first year we went 2 years ago, was a lot of fun. Like, none of my friends really knew anything about the Dice Tower, but they really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. They were like, oh, I'm gonna watch some Dice Tower stuff because that was entertaining. And it was all really just, it was Tom and Sam and Z and, the group just having a fun time. That has gone quite downhill to where we are this year. And I honestly meant to find Tom Vassell later that day or the next day and talk to him about this. Give him some honest feedback. But, yeah, Dice Tower Live has gone downhill because it's much more of like, it's like a corporate press show now. They bring out all these like representatives from other companies to like talk about their games, and there's some reveals and stuff. It's like a mini E3 for board games. They bring out Eric Lang to trump out some new thing. But at E3, when they announce a new game, and it's like this little cinematic trailer, like it's like 30 seconds. There's almost nothing, and it's completely pointless. The board game equivalent of that is the Dice Tower Live show, when Eric Lang comes out, and all he has to show is the box cover for his next game. That's it. And he's just like, yeah, this is what's next. And people are like, oh my God! So, yeah, he announced Bloodborne, the board game, which is like a legacy campaign Bloodborne board game, which, since it's Bloodborne and that's one of my favorite games of all time. I'll probably get it, but whatever. He could have announced that 2 years from now. He had nothing. And so, yeah, they just keep bringing out, all these other people from different companies to talk about games that are coming out in like a year. Or they're coming on Kickstarter in a year. It's just like, this is not what we came here to see. And then they had like Jeff Engelstein come out and give like some, like, it was like a TED Talk. He gave a TED Talk, honestly, about like board game design. And if you're a board game designer, it was probably pretty damn interesting. But 99% of the people in that room were not board game designers. And this is not what we came to see either. And so it's just so dry for the most part and dull, and just listening to these other people talk that I've never seen before, or I have seen before, but I just don't really care. It's like, what I came to see is Tom and the crew just shooting the shit and talking about games and experiences and things like that of Gen Con. That's what it should be. It's at Gen Con. It's the live Gen Con show. Talk about Gen Con stuff, but it seems like they don't ever even play anything at Gen Con. So they can't even talk about it because they're so busy, like, running the booth and doing all these other things. They even mention how they haven't gotten to play almost anything because that's just how busy they are. And it's just like, the show is going downhill, and I don't know what they're going to do to save it. Like, already we've got a couple people that are, like, in our group that are not that interested in maybe going next year. And even me, I watched like all their top 10s and stuff like that. I really like those guys. If it's the same thing next year, I don't know if in 2 years I'll go. And so that's boring. I didn't get a chance to talk to Tom about it, but it was disappointing. So that was that. We went to Kilroy's for dinner again. And then after that, we had the AEG Big Game Night. So this is an event that occurs every year at Gen Con, I guess. AEG puts this on. AEG is a publishing company, probably well-known, I would guess, for Smash Up. But they put out a bunch of games, usually trash ones. And so they put on this big game event where the ticket is like $32 or something like that. But you get to play all these games. They demo these games to you. You can play test new games that aren't out yet. And there's a raffle, and you get a big box of games to take home with you. Usually trash. And so people had talked very positively about this. They said it always sells out. It's something you should try if you go to Gen Con. And so I was like, okay, we're not doing that many events this year. We should try this game night. So we did the game night. It was sort of two bummer things. Studs actually lost his ticket before the event. Like, at Dice Tower Live, most likely, he lost the ticket. So that was $32 gone. And then Thomas was actually leaving Gen Con early, so he left the game night at like 10. So he transferred over his like wristband to Studs, but it was a pain in the ass. But anyway, so we get there, go over to this game night, and we just make a beeline straight for the most attractive demoer that we saw. That was the entire basis of our decision, which I was okay with. The game she was demoing was Smash Up, which we're pretty well familiar with. It could be worse. There are definitely worse games we could have played than that. And so yeah, there was this girl that was demoing it, and she seemed very nice. She seemed like a churchgoer, if you know what I mean. And so yeah, she sort of taught us Smash Up. Anytime we had a question, we of course called her over to help us. And so we're playing Smash Up, and every time we go to Gen Con, we always develop a bunch of new running jokes that we really just run into the ground every Gen Con. They all come up very organically, but we just use them over and over again, and they're always good for a laugh. different running jokes. Every single year we come up with new ones. So there's always, we always come up with a new term for going to the bathroom, because there's a lot of bathroom stuff involved at Gen Con. So I think either last year or 2 years ago it was dropping trow. So that was used a lot. This year it was blasting off. Again, you don't need to know how these terms started, but blasting off was our term for going to the bathroom. But one of the most pervasive ones this year, this is relevant, I assure you. It was like the first day of Gen Con, we were playing Root or something like, or Swordcraft or something like that, and I think it was Phil. He asked, "When is game done?" Which, when you're explaining a game, like we're 5 minutes into a game and you're asking when the game's done, that's pretty funny. Because it's already like, wow, this game's shit. When is it done? So there was that aspect to it, which was funny. But it was also funny because he said, "When is game done?" He dropped the part. So it's like just very like caveman, when is game done? And so that became a big running joke throughout the whole weekend. Many variations. When is game fun? When is wait done? When is walk done? You know, all sorts of stuff. When is Mangg done? So that became a big thing. And so I had joked about asking, like, before we were at the game night, I was joking about asking a demoer who was teaching the game, when is game done? And I thought, you know, we all thought that would be just hilarious. But usually, you know, we come up with all these things that never actually occur. But I was determined. And so this girl was teaching us the game, or she was answering a question, and so just very sincerely, I was like, "Oh, when is game done?" And just immediately Ziggy next to me just starts cracking up, and it was one of the toughest like straight faces I've ever had to pull off. But she didn't skip a beat, and she just immediately answered the question, assuming I'm like retarded or something, and I'm like, "Oh, okay, thank you." And so that was definitely a very highlight. Maybe you had to be there, but just the fact that for some reason just dropping off the in that sentence just made it so much funnier. And the fact that I asked it so sincerely, I thought was hilarious. Anyways, so we finished that game, and then we sort of like just split up completely, and we were pretty much just looking for the most attractive demoers. I mean, don't judge me. All games are equal. And, you know, we're a group of mostly single guys. Give me a break. I appreciate the female form. So we went to this other table. She was demoing Cat Lady. She only had 2 spots, so Ziggy and I just jumped in there. And we played with a couple strangers from Indiana. And it was a very hands-off, it was a very light game, so she really was almost never at our table teaching us anything, which was that was the whole point. But it was actually a decent game. Not the worst game in the world. It's called Cat Lady, if you're interested. It's kind of like Sushi Go, a little bit more involved, I think, with a cat theme. It was decent, and I won. So I got to proclaim that I was the true cat lady. So there was that. And then everyone there had been raving about Istanbul, the dice game. And so we were like, oh, we got to try Istanbul, the dice game. And so unfortunately, we did not go to the attractive female demoer. There was one nearby teaching Istanbul, the dice game. And I was mesmerized. Honestly, I was entranced. She was like a siren. It was crazy. She had like a kindergarten teacher look to her, and it was just crazy. But no, the guy that we had teaching us the game, Daniel, this guy was like a Mack truck, and I think he lost his breath like 8 years ago, because he never had any breath while he was teaching this game. And not only that, he just wasn't a good teacher. He just like kept on like cutting his sentences short and like jumping around to different topics. And so between him just like rambling on and cutting off and me being just mesmerized by this girl nearby, I have no idea how to play that game. No idea. And so I just went along with the motions, and I did not win, and I didn't think it was very good. But, yeah, so there was that. So then, that was pretty much it. We were pretty much gamed out at that point, so we wanted to check the raffle and get our prize and blah, blah, blah. So we're walking around the game night, and Ziggy points out another girl. And this girl, for all intents and purposes, looked to be probably in her 20s. Seemed relatively hip and attractive, which is not normally what you see at Gen Con. Except for one small thing that is very Gen Con. On the seat of her pants, she seemed to have a massive shit stain. And no, I'm not making this up. This was a young, attractive girl with a shit stain all over her pants. And this girl was not hiding this fact. She was not like huddled in a corner like, oh, what is she doing? This girl was like bending over in full view to show off her shit stain. I don't know if she was just on ecstasy and it was somehow stumbled into the AEG game night. If she was unaware. Also because she was on ecstasy. I don't know. Maybe she was proud of it. Maybe it was just chocolate. But even then, if you get anything vaguely brown anywhere near the seat of your pants, that's like you're done. That's a you're done situation. So we had to see that, and she became known as a pants blaster, of course. And it's sort of scarred into my mind. Because I don't want to see attractive girls with shit stains on their pants. That's not good. That ruins all sorts of imagery. And so we didn't win any of the raffles, of course not, because probably nobody does. It's all fake. And we got our main prize, our box of games, which turned out to be pretty much all trash. And the fact that we all got them means that we have like 4 duplicate copies of shit. And that was AEG Game Night, which had its ups and downs. We played a little bit Friday night. Saturday, we checked out of our hotel. We played some more games, and we went home. We grabbed some Chick-fil-A on the way home, and that was it. We were done with Gen Con. So yeah, Gen Con every year has its ups and downs overall. Its pros and its cons. It's got its good moments. It's got its bad moments. But it's really a highlight of the year for me. Even though I'm not that into board games, I'm not that into seeing shit stains. I'm not that into the Gen Con stank, as we call it, that is pervasive across the entire convention center and the city. And Dice Tower Live is getting worse, and the Fantasy Flight Line is shit. Despite all that, the girl at the escape room giggled at my jokes. So, best Gen Con ever, I would say. No, maybe not. But it was a lot of fun. You know, every year the fact that we're all together, just a group of guys, friends, just making a lot of jokes, judging all these cosplays. Because the cosplay scene at Gen Con is not up to the same snuff as, Comic-Con. You're going to see a lot of just garbage cosplays, but that's part of the fun. Yeah, it's something I look forward to every year. Despite all the issues that we have, you know, the hotel issues and the smells and the crowds and blah, blah, blah. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. So I'd recommend Gen Con to anybody, you know. If you're going to go to Gen Con, though, get in early. You know, get your hotel now. Get your events all sorted out, ready to go as soon as they go live and all that. And don't go for too many events. You know, you just want a few sparsed out through the whole scene. And yeah, just relax and like we really don't do much at Gen Con. Most of it we're just sitting around playing some new games that we bought and judging women. But that's good enough. So, yeah, another Gen Con done. Next year might be a little different. Phil's apparently bringing some other friends, another group of friends, so he's going to be dividing his time. Ziggy might bring his wife. So, I don't know exactly how it's all going to turn out, but hopefully we keep going and it keeps being a fun time. That's about all I have to say. I think this has gone on long enough. So, check out, well, we got more Octopath Traveler, Final Fantasy, a little bit of Monster Hunter World coming out this week, and check out the Q&A for Exploring series coming out tomorrow. But aside from that, my name is Mangg. This has been Hanging with Mangg, and I'll see you fine folks next week.